You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. On this podcast, we explore topics of interest for public health professionals that find themselves at this intersection of public health and entrepreneurship. My name is Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'm really excited that you've decided to join me on this episode. I am a public health entrepreneur, and I have over 25 years of experience in healthcare and in public health, and I've supported many entrepreneurs along the way. I've also been podcasting since 2017. On this episode, I'm going to share with you, a bit of a journey, a piece of a journey that falls at this intersection of real life and business, and it's really about navigating a crisis with your team. I would like to reference the episode 46, which is the one right before this. It's called What is CEO Time? And then also episode 44, which is commonly used consulting models. If you have not heard those episodes, I really encourage you to listen to those. I think they tie very nicely with what I'm going to be sharing with you on this episode today. Now, many of you may be aware of personal crisis. We made a statement sent out to our email list. So if you subscribe to our podcast, we send an email out to you explaining the personal crisis in my family. We had to say goodbye to our teenage son, my stepson, who lost his life in a motorcycle accident. And while I'm not here to talk about that on this episode, I am using this opportunity to share with you some of what we learned in navigating our business during a crisis like this. And I hope that none of you ever have to experience what we've experienced and what we're processing and still going through. It's a journey. But I do know that life happens and we will often experience crises in our business. And it's a real concern what happens, especially depending on your model of business. If you're a solo entrepreneur and it's just you, that's more of a concern more often because you are worried about what happens to you and getting the work done. If you have a team, it's still often a concern. So I am going to use the opportunity to share some of what I've been learning and I'm still learning as I'm on this journey because it's an important way to share with you in real time. So I would say for right now, I want to focus on really being able to navigate a crisis. So in that initial moment, whenever that crisis hits and you've got to make a decision and perhaps you're torn with what you need to do and your responsibility to your family and also your responsibility as a business owner. Making decisions during a crisis, I've learned that there are a lot of things that I set up in this business, my business, before even realizing that I was going to hit a wall like this. Even in some of the topics that I've shared in recent episodes, like I'm referring back to the commonly used consulting models and the episode about CEO time. And some of those episodes were recorded, not realizing I was going to be facing a crisis. So as you're listening, even now to this episode, there are a few episodes coming up that were pre-recorded before the crisis. So you'll just have to, I'm not going to necessarily mention on every single episode, but just put that into context. I know some of the upcoming interviews that we'll have were recorded before the crisis, but what I'm sharing with you right now is I realized even in the middle of everything that was happening, because, the fear and the pull of how do I handle this business, but I also need to be present with my family and, how am I handling my emotions, all those things. I realized there's so much that we did as a business, as a company. I set the structure, but I say we because I think of, my small team as a collective. And there are some decisions that we make as a team, and it's not just all of those decisions mine. Sometimes I filter them through some of the more senior members of my team. So I'm going to go through some of that with you. Like I said, making decisions during a crisis is just, maybe some of you are more kind of proactive and kind of prepared. And some things we do prepare for. We prepare for certain things that we can anticipate or we think we're anticipating. We have a handbook and a policy. We have a bereavement policy, but I never thought about what that meant in terms of, certainly not with a child. Some things completely blindside you and you just didn't expect to have to deal with that. So that has been my situation. And again, talking through it with you and sharing with you in real time some of what I'm realizing with my business, I believe is going to be helpful. So there are 3 things I want to share that we did really well before we even knew we would be here. So one is, I'm going to say, clear communication. I clearly communicated with each member of my team their role and their responsibility. I made it really easy for them to step up and know exactly how they could do more, because they have that heart and they care about each other and they care about this business. They care about me and they want to do what they could do and feel confident in being able to kind of own that. So one of the things, I set that intention with building a team, mainly because I had worked in the past where I didn't feel that way. So in my team culture, I try to cultivate the things that I wish I had. And then I pull from those team and organizations where, the parts that were working really well, I pulled those together. So I felt always that it was great I wanted my team members, no matter what their role was, from my part-time members to my full-time members, I want them to understand exactly what their responsibilities were and their role as a member of this team. And I saw this when I lost my mother last year and how they really stepped up and did more and allowed me to, help me to go through those tough times. But in this situation, when caught completely off guard and really feeling wiped out initially, they didn't have to scramble to figure out what to do or how to do it. We had communicated roles really well. One of my team members, I heard her explaining in one of our retreats that her role is to save me time. And she always remembered that. So she's always thinking, what can I do to save Dr. Huntley some time? And those are the kind of things that are really important to me. And I'm grateful that we set that and made that really clear. I've set that as a high priority. I just communicated their roles and their responsibilities, which, like I said, just made it really easy for them to automatically know what they needed to do, what their focus was, how they could step up. The second thing that stood out was, for me, is in terms of what I did early on, what I did before this type of crisis to really set us up, is the leadership structure that we have allows team members to not only own their projects, but really work independently. So some of my team members are client facing, which means they do client work and engage with clients. And some of my team members are part of the general operations of the business, and they're not exactly they're not dealing and interacting directly with our clients. So everyone feels this type of leadership, and I like this leadership structure. It allows them to really take on that responsibility for the projects that they have. So I'm speaking a little bit more specifically to my team members that are client facing, because I have this cadence. I'm not a fan of having a meeting for no reason. Sometimes there's all these meetings. We walk away thinking we just had a meeting that could have been an email. We have a meeting just about a meeting. And I'm not a fan of that, but I am a fan of having meetings on a regular basis so that that communication stays clear and open. And especially when we're dealing with projects and these team members that are client facing, I want to stay in the loop and I want to know in real time how things are going, so that if there's a need to course correct or change, we don't have to do it later. We do it sooner than later. And so in this case, I was able to, as I communicated, to each of my team members what happened, I remember one of our epidemiologists said, "Don't worry about this client. I'm on this project." Very clear about the importance. She's very clear of the challenges we have been facing up to that point, because we talk about this on a regular basis. And she actually was taking over a project, picking up where a different epidemiologist left off. And she was in the process of getting acclimated to some of the details, but she had been familiar with the overall project, because that's just the way we meet as a data team. And we talk about all of our projects. So everyone is familiar. I guess my thought was always, if someone needed to pick up for the other person, I didn't want them to have to start at zero and learn everything. I wanted them to be a little familiar with the general client and project, so that it wouldn't be a starting from scratch if we ever had to collaborate or trade projects or something came up. And it really served well, because she was like, "Don't worry about it. I've got this. You be present with your family, and I'm 100% on board with this client. I've got this client covered. I'm on this project." She knew exactly what needed to be done. And that gave me such a sense of peace, because this is also, again, this team member that I have worked with for a while. I trust. I know they're part of my team, so I know them. and just that peace of mind. And also not just for me, but I liked seeing her rise up and knowing what to do and feeling the strength to say, I've got this. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I'm figuring this out and I've got this client taken care of. So that leadership structure that we have allows our team members to really own their projects and to also work independently. And they're able to communicate with each other. They have resources and ability to easily communicate with each other. So that leadership structure was always important to me. I didn't want to be the one that was, everyone had to come to me for a decision or an answer. I really just did not want that. I want to be involved in the business, but I don't want everything to be, I don't want to be the bottleneck because if everything comes to me, then I've, can also have the ability to hold up things, not intentionally. So setting that up in advance, previously having that type of structure served us so well during this crisis. And then the final thing that I will mention is the leadership structure that allowed access to important information, allowing someone other than myself to make decisions and keep things moving along. My team was able to notify clients and community and cancel or reschedule appointments and then plan for my week of transition back into work. I never completely stopped working. I didn't completely remove myself. I would meet with my one team member, my operations manager, and go over, what's what for the day and just confirm what she was focused on. But that was the one thing that I had to do, and then I could step away. And everything else was optional. So if I had those antsy moments while I needed to sort of break away from the family a little bit, I had some project that I could dabble in if I wanted to. And a few times that helped me to just have something that felt a little routine. But my leadership structure allowed, she's technically my assistant operations manager. Moving into operations manager is the future plan, but she has access to all of the things that she needs to be able to communicate with my community, to cancel and reschedule appointments, and to look at my work week and make decisions about what needed to be there, what didn't need to be there, so that I could have a week of transition back without just going from crisis to work immediately. So that was really important for me, and it gave me a lot of peace. And I just, even in the middle, like I said, of trying to navigate, all the things of, final arrangements and family, and, we're a big blended family. So there's all this, all these dynamics that just make it complicated and stressful. And I just was so aware of these things that we did really well that allowed my business to thrive and keep moving forward without falling apart. And I didn't feel the strain to have to press through and try to do everything. These are just some of the things that we did well, but not all of them. They just come to mind, and I wanted to share with all of you and encourage you to strive to build a team and grow your business with the right dynamics, the way that can help support you in any type of crisis or situation that may arise. Organize your team in a way that sets everyone up for success, especially during a crisis, should you ever find yourself in one. Being organized and striving for clear communication is something you've heard me speak about often, but now I'm sharing another example of why this is so important. I hope this is helpful to you in some way. I dive deeply into topics like this, these types of strategies for operating your business and structure with our private community. We have an awesome Mastermind Group program that is best suited for established public health entrepreneurs, where we work together online and also gather in person 2 days for a 2-day retreat. We do this twice a year. And we've had some entrepreneurs come from all over the US and beyond to attend our in-person retreats. Enrollment is only open twice a year. So that's in June and December. So it is only open to people who have submitted an application. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, if you'd like to know more about our Mastermind Group program, then please visit our website and submit an application at publichealthentrepreneurs.com. And you'll find the links in the description of this episode as well. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I appreciate all of your support and well wishes. I received hundreds of condolences and messages, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate all of the support and prayers and good thoughts and everything that people were sending my way and for my family. Again, this is not easy to just, to continue on, but I value transparency and I guess real conversations. And as I learn, I share, and I think this is life, right? I'd love to just show you all these sunny, rosy parts of everything being perfect, and that's just not reality. So I continue on. This platform gives me a way to share with you what I'm learning in real time. Well, not exactly in real time. I don't think I would have been able to record in the middle of the crisis, but I can share with you, after that immediate first couple of weeks of dealing with the initial part of the crisis, what my takeaways are in terms of how it's helping me as an entrepreneur and building this business and team. And I know a lot of you are right there with me in building your team and growing your business. And I'm just hoping that this is helpful for you. So as I wrap up, I'd like to also ask you to help me spread the word about this podcast. There are some easy ways that you can do that. You can share directly from the podcast app that you may be listening in right now. You can share our website with a friend, publichealthentrepreneurs.com. Another way is by leaving a favorable review in Apple Podcasts. That really helps people to decide whether or not this is something they want to listen to. So whichever option you choose, I appreciate you for helping spread the word about this podcast. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.